Welcome to our lesson today in science. The topic is body systems and subtopic systems working together. Now, we have gone through this journey of body systems, and it is true that you have appreciated how body systems can be able to function independently, but at the same time the independence is coordinated in a way to achieve the demands of the cell. Remember, we have gone through several body systems: circulatory system, excretory system, respiratory system. If we just look at, for instance, digestive system vis-a-vis other systems, we have realized that after digestion of food will be absorbed into the blood stream. The blood stream already is part of a circulatory system, and then it will have to travel to other areas of the body, supplying cells and tissues with, for instance, glucose. Respiration will take place in cells, and then there will be formation of waste metabolic products. We were able to mention emphatically that those waste metabolic products are usually poisonous to the cells. Since they are poisonous, we must have a means of removing these waste metabolic products. Therefore, it comes in excretory system. Majorly, the kidneys will be involved in filtering blood so that these waste metabolic products are removed. And all those are coordinated by the nervous system. Those changes in the external environment and in the internal environment, so that now the body can respond to them. That's why we are looking at this subtopic, systems working together. Remember, we said that systems in a body are built from the living blocks, which are the cells. So systems of multicellular organisms, of multicellular organisms are organized in a hierarchy such that we have cells that usually come together to form tissues, and tissues, which are a group of cells with specific structure and function, will come together again to form organs, and organs will be synchronized so that they work together, like in the circulatory system, so that now they form a system, the organ system. Organ system, and then several organ systems. You cannot find excretory system away from or independent of an organism. So several organ systems will come together to form an organism. So in this organism, we have all the systems that we have been mentioning. Although in some organisms that are not highly developed, some of the systems will not be there. But you realize that we have those systems, like digestive system will be in that organism, like circulatory system will be in that organism, like excretory system will be in that organism, and several other systems. So these systems have to work together. I want to find out how they can be able to work together. So, for instance, we have already said that these systems work together. Like some of the functions that will be carried out by these systems include exchange of materials, exchange of materials between the organism and external environment. We have seen systems that can be involved in this function. For example, examples of this system will be the digestive system. In digestive system, there is ingestion of food materials. After ingestion, some of it will be absorbed into the bloodstream. It will go to the cells. Metabolism will be carried on those food materials, and waste metabolic products will be formed. After formation of waste metabolic products, they'll have to be removed from the body through excretory system. Removal of waste metabolic products through excretory system is a way. It's like materials coming through the mouth in the digestive system. It has gone through the digestive system into blood. Now waste metabolic products has been formed, and then it goes out through the urinary system. You also have excretory. Indeed, they are working together. Digestive system is exchanging materials between the body and the external environment. After formation of those waste metabolic products, they'll have to be removed. Excretory system comes in to remove those waste metabolic products. Respiratory system. We have seen that already after digestion, food will be absorbed, it will go to the cells. It's not going just to be stored in the cells, it will be broken down. To be broken down, we need oxygen. For instance, if it is glucose being broken down, we need oxygen. Oxygen has to be supplied to the tissues and cells. How will it be supplied? Through a respiratory system, so that now other materials or waste metabolic products that we have already come across, carbon 4 oxide and water, are formed, of course, with a form of energy called ATP energy. So we are seeing how materials are coming into the body through these systems and how they are getting out of the system. Another one is providing support. Another function of this system, some provide support and protection. To body parts. The most efficient system for this purpose is the skeletal system. Indeed, you can remember some of the roles of skeletal system. Like we said that we have the skull as part of the axial skeleton. Skull houses the brains. That is protection of a body part, the brain. So that is protection. And then we also said that skeletal system cannot work without the muscular system, the support, or skeletal system forming a framework onto which muscles are going to be attached, so that through their contraction and relaxation we can have movement. Another function of the system is involved in coordination of various activities in the body. And the system that carries out this function is, there are two of them: nervous system and endocrine system. Nervous system and endocrine system. Another role is supply of materials to cells and removal of waste metabolic products. So the most important system here is circulatory system. In fact, circulatory system works across all the systems, because even if it is respiratory system, it cannot work without the circulatory system. Remember, after air gets into the lungs, exchange of gases, for instance, if we are going to have oxygen diffusing into blood or to get to the cells, it will have to diffuse to blood, which is part of the circulatory system, and then it will be transported to the cells where the breakdown is going to occur. If it is excretory system, after metabolic wastes have been formed, they will be transported by blood to excretory organs or excretory sites. If it is endocrine system, it will depend again on the circulatory system to carry the hormones to points or target organs. So circulatory system is like it cuts across the rest of the systems. They depend on it. And then we have said, for these systems to be formed, very important structures have to be made first, the tissues. As we have been able to look at the hierarchy of formation of systems, we have been able to say that we are going to have cells which come together to form tissues. Tissues will form organs, and organs now will form part of the system. So what is a tissue? A tissue is a group of cells. A group of cells with a particular structure or specific structure meant to perform similar function. Similar functions. For example, if we are talking of nerve tissue, if it's going to be a nerve tissue, all the cells will be modified to be somehow similar in their structure. The structure will be similar, so that now they can perform similar function. They are cells, but they have been modified in a way so that they look slightly the same or they look alike, and so that they can carry out similar functions. Types of tissues. There are four main types of tissues. One of them is epithelial. Epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue most of the time forms the upper covering or the overlying layer over the rest of the tissues. Like skin could be an example of epithelial tissue. It is overlying other tissues. And because it's overlying other tissues, the main function of epithelial tissue is to provide protection to underlying tissues or cells. Another type is skeletal. Skeletal tissue. Remember we came across skeletal system. So skeletal system is made up of skeletal tissues, and their main function is support and protection. We have nerve tissues. Nerve tissues. Nerve tissues, we have come across nerve tissues in nervous system, where we said nerve tissue are formed by small cells or cells called neurons or nerve cells. Remember we talked about motor neuron, relay neuron, sensory neuron. So from that point, we can easily give the role of nerve tissue as conduction of nerve impulses. It's meant to conduct nerve impulses. The other one is connective tissues. Just like the word suggests, connective tissues. It's the one that binds tissues together and other cells. And sometimes organs together. For example, if we talked about the skeletal system and we have one bone articulating to another bone, there must be a way of linking the two bones or binding the two bones. We identified that part that binds two bones or that connects two bones as the ligament. Ligament is made up of connective tissue. So you'll find that these tissues, the four types that we have mentioned, they can, maybe all of them or some of them, be found in an organ. We are going to look at an example where the 3 or 4 are found. Example, stomach wall. Stomach wall. So stomach wall has the three tissues, and you can represent that using a diagram. So we have 4 layers in the stomach wall. First layer is epithelial tissue layer. The next one is connective tissue layer, and we have the muscular tissue or smooth muscle tissue, and the outermost will be made up of 2 parts here: connective tissue and epithelial. Epithelial tissue. So these 4 layers of tissues in the stomach wall usually function together to achieve both chemical and physical digestion. So we want to find out how these 4 layers are able to achieve the functions in the stomach wall. functions of tissues in the stomach wall. First one is epithelial. Now, we have said that when you say epi means above. So we have the rest under. But now if this is the stomach, you remember it's a pouch-like structure. That's the wall we are talking about. That wall, the epithelial layer will be inside the stomach. But the two layers, epithelial and connective tissue, will be on the outside. So epithelial layer tissue is directly in contact with substances like food, with enzymes. And remember again, in the stomach, we have cells secreting an acid called gastric hydrochloric acid. So there we have enzymes. These enzymes are protein digesting. They digest protein. They are protein digesting. The stomach wall is made up of tissues. Tissues are made up of cells. Those cells are made up of proteins. So it's possible that the enzymes can digest the walls of the stomach. But that one rarely happens unless there's a problem. Why? Because of the epithelial tissue. In other words, epithelial tissue provides protection to the underlying tissues of the stomach against enzymatic digestion and also from corrosion by hydrochloric acid. There is an acid here. We have enzymes that digest proteins. Proteins form part of the cells. So if we have cells here, they will be digested, but that one does not happen because of the epithelial tissue. So one role of epithelial tissue in stomach is providing protection, provides protection to the underlying tissues from enzymatic digestion and corrosion by hydrochloric acid. Another role on this epithelial, if we use some of the cells in the epithelial layer are modified into some deep pits. So these deep pits usually form glands. Glands found in the stomach are gastric glands. These glands, as we are able to mention in our previous lesson, they secrete enzymes. I hope you can remember the enzyme, Pepsinogen. We have two types of enzyme, Pepsinogen and renin. We also have secretion of HCl by parietal cells. So apart from just protection, it's also involved. This is a cell, epithelial cell. It has formed a layer which is now a tissue, but it has some deep pits which form gastric glands which will secrete enzymes, pepsinogen and renin and HCl. These two are important in digestion. So epithelial tissue is also involved in digestion because it is from this tissue that we have secretion of enzymes, pepsinogen and renin. Remember, pepsinogen breaks down proteins to peptides. Renin converts milk protein caseinogen into casein so that it can be digested. So it is involved in digestion. HCl provides the correct pH for working of the enzyme. So another function of epithelial tissue is forming gastric glands that secretes enzymes, pepsinogen and renin. Remember, pepsinogen is an inactive form of an enzyme called pepsin. An inactive form of an enzyme called pepsin. It will be converted to pepsin by hydrochloric acid. Renin converts caseinogen to casein. Then apart from that, it also forms some special cells. On the epithelial tissue, we have special cells called goblet cells. Forms goblet cells. Goblet cells secretes mucus. Mucus is very important in the stomach because remember we have said we have HCl, we have enzymes that digest proteins. It's going to form a layer over these tissues. It is going to form a layer there. That is the layer. That layer is of mucus. Mucus layer. Where is it coming from? Goblet cells. Goblet cells are formed in the epithelial tissue. So mucus is important because it provides protection. Provides protection to underlying tissues or cells from corrosion by HCl and digestion by protein digesting enzymes, pepsinogen. Apart from that, also mucus lubricates food. Lubricates food. Food has to be lubricated because it is going through the digestive system. So for that one to happen, to reduce friction between food materials and the walls of the digestive system, we need, or there must be, mucus to lubricate food so that there is smooth movement of food within the digestive system. The other tissue, connective tissue. Connective tissue is the one that hosts blood vessel, has blood vessels and nerves. Blood vessels are important because they transport nutrients, for transportation of nutrients and oxygen to cells in the stomach walls. Remember, there are cells, they require materials for respiration and other metabolic processes. So they will require nutrients, they require oxygen. Blood vessels will perform that function. So connective tissues having blood vessels, it helps, or they are involved in provision of nutrients and oxygen to cells of the stomach so that they can carry on metabolism. After metabolism, there is formation of waste metabolic products. Those waste metabolic products have to be removed from stomach walls or from the cells that make up stomach walls. So blood vessels also come in handy. Removal of waste metabolic products. Removal of waste metabolic products. And then nerves. Nerves are found in the connective tissue. They are important because they are the one that will carry nerve impulses to the stomach as an organ so that they can control and coordinate activities of the stomach. They carry messages or impulses to stomach to coordinate, to control and coordinate activities of the stomach. The other part that we mentioned was smooth muscles or smooth muscular tissue. Smooth muscle tissue are just found underneath the connective tissues. Their role mainly is to contract and relax to bring about the rhythmic series of movements in the stomach. We call it peristaltic movements. Peristaltic movements. So, smooth muscles, they bring about peristaltic movements which are important in moving food down the digestive system. Also, these peristaltic movements are going to enable mixing of the food and juices. That mixing of food and juices in the stomach is called churning. So again, smooth muscles, through their peristaltic movement, they bring about churning of food. Churning of food, we have said, is that mixing of food with digestive juices. And in this case, the real juice being gastric juice. Then the last layer is made up of epithelial and connective tissues. And connective tissue. This forms the external boundary of the stomach. Forms the external boundary of the stomach. So we have seen how the three layers, this is the repeated layer, that's why I'm excluding it, although it's part of the layer. But the major tissues, epithelial tissue, connective tissue, smooth muscle tissues. But here, the last one is just a thin layer making an external boundary of the stomach. So from that, we can actually understand how the systems are working together. But we can look at these questions just to ensure that you have understood properly. So one of the first question is, what are the main types of tissues? What are the main types of tissues? I think this one is a very easy question. We have already mentioned them. The tissues, we have epithelial tissue, we have connective tissue, we have nerve tissue, then we have muscular tissue. Question number 2, which organ systems Which organ systems contain these organs or tissues? So one of them is heart, the heart. Which organ system contain this organ, the heart? We can mention together as we move. Where do we expect to find the heart? In which system? You can remember it is circulatory system. Circulatory system. We have stomach. Where do we expect to find stomach? Stomach is part of digestive system. We have skeletal tissue. Where do we expect to find this? Skeletal system. We have lymph nodes. Lymph node. Where do you expect to find lymph node? Lymphatic system. Lymphatic system. Brains. Brain is an organ. Where do we get brain system? Nervous system. We have kidneys. Kidneys, they form which part of system? Urinary system. Can also be referred to as excretory system. We have this part called vertebrae or vertebrae. Vertebrae, where do you find them? Skeletal system. They form part of the skeletal system. Another part, thyroid gland. Remember thyroid gland secreting, that was secreting, or we mentioned it secreting a hormone, thyroxine. So where we have hormones, endocrine system. Endocrine system. Then we have lungs. Lungs, they form part of which system? Respiratory system. And the last on our list, ovaries or testes. Where do you find them? Which part of the system? Now, these two can fall into two systems. Reproductive system, and there's a reason why it should be reproductive system, because are the one that ovaries and testes produce gametes. Gametes are reproductive cells. But again, we were able to find out that ovaries, testes, they secrete hormones. Hormones, ovaries, estrogen, testes secreting testosterone. So they also fall under endocrine system. Now, of worthy to note of organs or tissues falling into two systems. Apart from ovaries and testes, there was also pancreas. Pancreas, we were able to find out that it secretes enzymes, pancreatic enzymes. So because of pancreas secreting enzymes, then it is part of digestive system. But again, hormones. Pancreas also secretes hormones. We have mentioned two hormones. The one that control sugar level in the body, insulin and glucagon. So we have hormones. So because of that, pancreas also becomes an endocrine gland or an endocrine organ. So we have two exceptions here that we must take care that they could belong to any of those systems. Question number 3. Describe how the 4 layers of the stomach describe how the 4 layers of the stomach work together to achieve both physical and chemical digestion. Now we have these two type of digestion taking place in the digestive system. Physical simply means that process of breaking down large complex food materials into simple forms, smaller molecules, through maybe chewing, the churning process that we have mentioned. Chemical digestion here involves enzymes. So once we understand this, that physical is the breaking down of those small or large particles of food into small materials, like for instance chewing. When you are chewing, you are breaking food into small particles. Churning also helps in the same, and we also have emulsification. I'm just trying to explain physical and the chemical digestion so that now when you answer it, you can be able to get your answer correct. So we have chewing, churning, and emulsification. Emulsification, that process of breaking down large fats into small droplets so that you increase the surface area for digestion. But for chemical, we are saying it's mainly by use of enzymes. Remember enzymes in the stomach, pepsinogen. So we go back to the question, describe how the 4 layers of the stomach work together to achieve both physical and chemical digestion. We have mentioned the layers. We have epithelial layer. We have said that in the epithelial layer, you'll find structures like gastric glands. I've said epithelial layer has cells, epithelial cells, and in some of those cells, it is modified to form deep pits. Those deep pits form the gastric glands. Remember the roles of gastric glands. We said secretes gastric juice, and that juice contains enzymes. The major enzyme there is pepsinogen. Pepsinogen, we have repeated again very many times, is the one that breaks down proteins to peptides. Pepsin, but secreted in form of pepsinogen. We have an enzyme renin being secreted by some gastric glands. Renin usually converts a protein in milk called caseinogen into casein, renin. So we have gastric glands in epithelial layer that secretes enzymes. And also, remember, we also said that the gastric juice contains HCl. It has been secreted by gastric glands. So the role of HCl here, again, apart from just digestion, we have HCl, which provides the correct pH, provides correct pH for working of enzymes in the stomach, enzyme pepsinogen, enzyme renin. The other thing that you should also get, we have said that epithelial layer has cells. Apart from gastric glands, it also has cells. Those cells are called goblet cells. And I've mentioned that goblet cells secrete mucus. The role of mucus, we have said, one of them is protection. Protection of the underlying tissues from HCl corrosion and enzymatic digestion. And also, we mentioned another role, lubrication of food, so that food can easily move through the digestive system. The other layer is connective tissue layer. We said that connective tissue layer has blood vessels. The role of blood vessels is to carry nutrients and oxygen to stomach cells so that they can continue in their metabolism. And then we have also said connective layer has nerve cells or nerve fibers. Nerve fibers, they carry impulses to the stomach so that activities of the stomach can be controlled and regulated. So another layer of the stomach wall is smooth muscles. Smooth muscles, they contract and relax to bring about peristaltic movements. Peristaltic movements are a series of rhythmic contraction in the digestive system. These peristaltic movements will bring about another process called churning. Churning is the mixing of food and juices in the stomach, so that now enzymes can get into contact with food and able to bring about digestion or break it into simpler forms of the food. So that's the main role of the smooth muscles. Then another layer, which is a combination of two, epithelial and connective layer. This is found in the external part of the stomach and is in contact with other organs that are found in the abdominal cavity. And because of that, it only forms the external boundary of the stomach. Question number 4, that is. Question 4. Complete the table to summarize parts and functions of different systems. Parts and functions of systems. So we shall have a table of 3 column systems, parts, and functions. Now this question is important because it's going to help us now summarize everything that we have learned about body systems. Let us look at the first system, skeletal system. Skeletal system mainly is made up of bones that form the skull, axial, appendicular skeleton. We have the tendons. Tendons are those structures that hold or attach muscles to bones. Remember, for one to move or for locomotion to happen, there must be contraction of the muscles. And when muscles contract, they'll bring about movement of the framework, which is the skeleton. And then we have ligaments. Ligaments, they hold bone to bone. They attach one bone to another. And then we have other parts called the cartilage. Remember, we said that bones are hard, tough. So if you are going to have a joint where 2 bones are articulating and there is no material to reduce or to cushion friction, to reduce friction, there will be a problem. So cartilage is usually found at the end of the bone. If this is a bone, we shall have a layer of cartilage at that point, so that just to cushion the bones against shocks and also to reduce friction in case these bones get into contact. Function of skeletal system, we have said support or a protection of soft parts, delicate parts of the body, like the brain, like the eyes, like our ears are found in the skull for protection. Then supports also soft parts of the body. Providing support. If the skeleton is removed from, for example, mammals, it will be very difficult for them to support the rest of the flesh and for them to move. We also mentioned that in the bones there is formation of cells, specifically blood cells, production of red blood cells and white blood cells. And then we also mention that in these bones, because they are made up of salts, specifically calcium and phosphate salts, they are used or meant for storage of salts, And then for movement, it provides site for attachment. Attachment of muscles. So how important is this? So that when muscles contract and relax, it can bring about movement and locomotion. System number 2, circulatory system. Parts that make circulatory system, remember, is the heart. We have blood vessels like veins. We have arteries, capillaries, and of course the blood itself. Remember, blood has several other parts like red blood cells, white blood cells, plasma, platelets, functions. The major role of secretory system is to transport materials within the body. Transportation of materials within the body. Materials like nutrients. After digestion, we need those digested food material to reach cells for metabolism. Materials like waste metabolic products from maybe the tissues where they've been produced to sites of removal. Then transportation of cells. Remember, we have cells in blood like red blood cells. Red blood cells are important because they carry oxygen. So if red blood cells are transported, again, oxygen will be transported in the same manner. Then distribution of heat. Distribution of heat. We have some parts of the body that produces more heat than others. Like liver, when the temperature is too low, it will increase exothermic reactions. It will increase exothermic reaction, and in the process, if that heat will be taken in blood and distributed to the rest of the body, circulatory system will have achieved the best way of distributing heat. Then system number 3, nervous system. Nervous system. Nervous system, we have already seen that is made up of nerve cells. Nerve cells. Those nerve cells, we are calling them as neurons. It has sensory organs. It has sensory organs. We have the brain, which makes the central nervous system, and the spinal cord. Function of nervous system, you can look at slightly each one of them, like sensory organs, skin. The role of skin in relation to nervous system is to detect changes in the external environment. Detect changes in the external environment. And then nerve cells, after those changes have been detected, there will be impulse being generated by sense organs. They'll be transmitted through the nerve cells. So conduction of nerve impulses. Conduction of nerve impulses. It will go to the brain, and then there will be interpretation, which will bring about response. So another role of nervous system brings about response. Brings about response to external changes. External changes. Those external changes, we call them stimuli. Stimuli. Any change in the external environment is a stimuli. So we have several systems which are going to go through together as we summarize the topic body systems. I hope you have enjoyed. Welcome in our next lesson, which I will present later.